Good morning, everyone. I rarely like to record these videos because, people say, oh, contrarian, right? But I did the same thing for PLTR. I mentioned PLTR when it was at 200. This whole run up, this whole 180 to 200, I said, you guys got to be careful. PLTR, it's overvalued, charts overextended. I think we're going to get a pretty dramatic shift. And we have so far. I also don't think the move is over yet on PLTR. I think it's going to see lower. But still, we got the big move, right? I was short in the 190s, I was short in the 200s, and we got a big move down into 120. I'm going to issue the same warning on a few chip names, okay? Again, like I don't want to say I'm bearish chips, I'm bearish semiconductors. Long term, great, yeah, they're great. I think that potentially they can change the world. AI can change the world. I'm not a long-term contrarian. I'm always a long-term bull, but I do recognize short-term volatility risk, and that's something that I'm seeing right now. So there's just several names that are coming up that I just want to issue a bit of a warning on. And the first one is AMD, clearly overextended here. We've gone from a 150 billion market cap just last year, literally last year, to now 850 billion in a year. So, I posted some back tests of how stocks tend to react after reaching 1 trillion market cap for the first time. And you can actually see when the moves happen too fast, it doesn't matter how good the company is. They have to be tested to make sure that they can actually back that future's earnings potential. Okay, so you saw what happened with Tesla. This went from 100 billion market cap in 2020 to 1.2 trillion market cap, not even 1.15 trillion market cap at the top here at the end of 2021. But then the stock corrected 75%, even as earnings were growing. I mean, they were crushing their earnings. Earnings were growing, but this, it just can't, the valuation has to catch up to the stock price. Okay, so that's why we got this big reset. Now, again, that doesn't mean you have to be a long-term bear of Tesla. If you bought this dip as it was selling, then you had a great opportunity, and now Tesla's back to all-time highs. But you have to understand short-term volatility risk. And that's what I see. A lot of people are just saying, oh, the market can never go back down again. Oh, just buy MU and go to sleep. Just buy AMD and go to sleep. Just be careful, guys. Let me show you some other charts. SNDK. This is an absolute squeezer. Absolutely insane. Look at this. This IPO'd in March or February. This IPO'd in February at, I can't see the valuation there. What is it? 5 billion market cap. And it's already up to a 250 billion market cap. This is based on future free cash flow. And while this may sustain over a long-term period, this is going to sell off. This is going to correct, right? This is not sustainable upside. Okay, you can't just have green months for a year in a row without some sort of capitulation, right? They have to test that future valuation potential. You can't just say, yes, 1,000%, this is going to go 1,000%, and it's going to stay up there, and earnings are going to crush. It doesn't matter if earnings crush. I'll show you what happened with Tesla. Let me show you what happened with NVIDIA. So NVIDIA went from, this is back here in 2022, okay? NVIDIA, one of the best names ever. NVIDIA is like one of the best names, stocks, companies ever, okay? And NVIDIA did the same thing, right? It went from 100 billion market cap back here in 2019 to an 800 billion market cap in 2021. So this actually took 2 years to reach that, while a name like MU is doing that in 1 year. Absolute insanity, okay? So even NVIDIA, which is an absolute king, right? We got to an 800 billion market cap, and then we had to retest the valuation. Can it actually live up to this major potential? Can it live up to its hype? And we got a 68% correction, and now NVIDIA is at all-time highs, and we continue ripping. So, I'm not saying, oh, you have to be bearish memory, you have to be bearish semis, but you do have to see how is it reacting now, and is there going to be some volatility risk in the not too distant future? And look at this, NVIDIA was still crushing. They beat earnings, they were making more and more revenue, right? They had a little bit of a down month there, but 6 billion, 7 billion. I mean, they were beating earnings. They had one missed quarter, but besides that, they were beating earnings every single time, even during this downside. Okay, so there's short-term volatility risk. no matter how solid the company is, and even if their projections are through the roof, there is short-term volatility risk when prices expand beyond the mean, okay? Let's look at another example. STX, this is another one. Oh my, just look at these charts, guys. This is not normal. This is not normal behavior for a market, right? This is normal behavior. You see some nice volatility expansion, and then it, we get this massive, absolutely massive squeeze. Got to zoom back in here on the market cap, but you can see this was trading just last year. Last year was trading at an 18 billion market cap, and now it's at a 200 billion market cap, right? Now this may be a great company, and it looks like they're crushing earnings, but it has to live up to the future potential, right? It has to live up to the future earnings. You can't just continue squeezing like this. There will be a pullback on a lot of these names. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about retail, guys. WDC, look at this. This is a normal chart, right? This is pretty normal. We had a really big spike here during the dot-com bubble. Really big spike here, very similar to today's chart, right? Huge spike up, and let's see what happens. So today, same thing, right? Same thing. WDC, Western Digital Corporation. Same spike is happening now, and this went from just last year, 15 billion market cap, now to a 200 billion market cap, okay? Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, MU. MU. Why do I want to talk specifically about MU? Because this is the fastest stock ever to go from 100 billion market cap to 1 trillion market cap, ever, okay? It's the fastest stock to ever accomplish that feat. Before this, it was Tesla. Tesla was actually faster than Nvidia. I think a lot of people would be surprised by that, but Tesla was actually faster to reach a trillion market cap than Nvidia was to go from 100 billion to 1 trillion, okay? Tesla was faster. And you saw what happened to Tesla. Tesla got crushed. It went down 75% after reaching that 1 trillion market cap. And that doesn't mean that MU will make the same move, but history doesn't always repeat. It does rhyme. I can tell you that. I can tell you guys that, okay? And I've seen volatility expansions like this before. I've been trading for a very long time, okay? This is normal market behavior. Normal market behavior. You can even see back here in the 90s during the dot-com bubble, when we get too big of a run-up too fast, this was the first run-up of MU in 1995, we see these massive volatility candles, you get major corrections. So massive volatility candles, major corrections. And, I would put money on the fact that the same thing happens. And I already do have money on the fact the same thing happens because I'm shorting tech and I'm shorting semis, okay? But take a look at this. 100 billion last year, now over a trillion market cap. Less than a year. I think it took less than a year for it to get there, okay? This is absolute insanity, unsustainable, and I can tell you guys there will be corrections, and the corrections will be sharp and fierce as they were in the past, okay? So this is just a warning. It's a bit of a warning, but it's more so just I'm trying to protect everyone from buying at 930, and then, for whatever reason, let's say we do get that same correction that Tesla got, and it goes down 75%, right? Now it's at 220 and you're going to panic sell when eventually it probably will go back to all-time highs. But I can tell you short-term volatility is coming. Short-term volatility is coming on many of these chip names. If we can look at Dell, look at this chart. Absolute insanity, okay? Absolute insanity. Volatility is coming, guys. I'm trying not trying to be a bear. I'm not trying to be whatever. Let's look at one more. Flex. Look at this chart. Look at this chart. This was back in the dot-com bubble, right? Volatility expansion, got the big move, and it crashed all the way back down to pre-dot-com levels. Same thing's happening today. The craziest thing about what's happening today is this is actually happening during a midterm year. So you would expect to see a bit more downside risk in a midterm year. And 1998, same thing actually happened. We got a spike during the summer and then a big sell-off. And then we got a euphoric leg higher. So the same thing could happen, I would say, after the elections. If we get one more AI euphoric rally, it could happen after the elections, in my opinion, okay? But I do think there is some short-term volatility risk in a lot of these names that are just, expanding at levels way too fast. It's just moving too quickly, okay? 12 billion market cap now to a 60 billion or 55 billion market cap in a year. Okay, very dangerous price action. Not sustainable. I think we're going to have a pretty big correction on most of these names. Okay, this is just my opinion. You know, I gave my opinion on PLTR. I said to be careful buying at 200, even though it's an amazing company, right? They're killing earnings, but guess what? It doesn't really matter when it's so overvalued, okay? When it's so overextended like that. So be careful out there. This is just my 2 cents. Take it with a grain of salt, whatever you want, okay? And hope you guys enjoyed this little, whatever you want to call it. Take care, everyone.